Hi, I'm Dave Bailey, and I operate KPC's constructed wastewater treatment system. Back in 1988-89, the septic system here at the temple basically failed. Water was coming up, down, running down the hill, and the county said action had to be taken. I was approached by someone from the temple. At the time, I was managing the water treatment systems and the permits for the Potomac Electric Power Company and their 4 power plants in Maryland, including Dickerson, which is fairly close to the temple. And they asked me if I had any suggestions as to what actions we could take to get back into compliance. Fortunately, about that same time, I attended a conference of the Electric Power Research Institute, and an individual from TVA made a presentation on constructed wetland wastewater treatment systems for small residential properties. Their issue was a lot of the TVA lakes were being developed. People wanted to build houses around the lake, but the water from the septic fields, a lot of them didn't perk very well, and it was polluting some of the lakes. So these systems were basically designed to address that issue. I approached KPC with the concept, and it was very favorably approved, and they told me to proceed to see what we could do about getting one installed here at KPC. I initially went to the county in Maryland. The Maryland Department of Environment has oversight for all water discharge permits and wastewater, as well as septic tanks and how they're managed. And they delegated authority to Montgomery County. However, Montgomery County wasn't at all comfortable with this, since this was the first of its kind. And so they referred me back to the state, the Maryland Department of Environment. So I did have some relationships with MDE by virtue of my work for PEPCO, and we embarked on some discussions, and they were very helpful in getting us through the permit process. We did need a discharge permit because the way the system works results in a discharge to a drainage ditch along River Road, which goes downhill into a small stream. So in terms of options to address failed septic systems, there were several different options being considered by the temple. One is to build or purchase a large tank, bury it in the ground. This would be a 10,000, 20,000 gallon tank, have all the wastewater go into the tank, and then pump it out. However, it would be expensive both to install it as well as continually have that wastewater hauled away. Second option is a mound system. That also is expensive, requires importing a lot of soils and constructing a long mound on the property, which would not really fit in with the current use of the property. And the third one was a package wastewater treatment system. However, that requires a certain amount of technical expertise to operate it, so none of those was really attractive options in terms of solving KPC's problems. The beauty of the constructed wetland wastewater treatment system is it's environmentally friendly because it requires no chemicals in order to treat the wastewater. There are 4 major concerns that have to be addressed in a discharge permit. One is the fecal coliforms, the harmful bacteria. To do that, we have a UV light system. Secondly is adequate oxygen in the water to ensure that fish and aquatic life in the intermittent stream are protected. We do that by using air pumps to keep the water well aerated before we discharge it. And then we have to reduce ammonia. Two problems with ammonia. One is it's toxic, and two is it's a nutrient. And the big problem in the Chesapeake Bay right now is nutrient enrichment, which basically acts as a fertilizer to stimulate algal growth, but with too much algae it dies, and as it degrades it uses up the oxygen in the water, and there's not adequate air in the water or oxygen in the water for fish to breathe. So for nitrogen, that's where the wetland plants come into play. The root systems of the aquatic vegetation we put in our 3 wetland cells basically use the ammonia or nitrogen as fertilizer for their growth, and therefore we have that benefit which avoids use of chemicals. And the filtration also allows us to not use chlorine, which is commonly used in public wastewater treatment systems to kill bacteria, but also is a chemical and breaks down and can cause problem in water. One of the problems we were faced with is the TVA design did not completely meet our needs. In their system, the water ends up through a large filter bag into groundwater, and we knew that wouldn't work here in Montgomery County because of the nature of the soils we have. So in order to meet the fecal coliform limits, we installed a UV light at the end of the UV is an excellent way to treat this, since again it avoids use of chemicals, specifically chlorine, and in addition, consistent with our Buddhist philosophy, no bacteria is killed, simply sterilized. And therefore we felt it was a perfect fit in order to meet the fecal coliform limits. So the problem we're having at KPC is, after 25 years of operation, the system has developed problems. Basically, we have 3 problems we need to address. One is the first wetland cell has accumulated a lot of solids which don't allow proper time for water to be treated and flow through the root systems of the plants. What we need to do is remove the current gravel and sediments in that cell and replace it with clean gravel. Then the second problem is our current septic tank, where waste from the temple first go before they flow down to the wetland cell, is too small for the amount of use it gets at KPC. And they now make septic tanks that will actually reduce nitrogen. So installing a new septic tank will give us greater capacity, remove some of the nitrogen before it goes down to the first wetland cell, and prevent further solids from getting into that cell. Our big problem right now is nitrogen. We're bumping up the limit against the limits in our permit, and if we don't do something quickly, we will be having violations. And the third thing we would like to do is upgrade or replace some of the plants in the wetland systems. We've lost some over the years because of invasion of non-water treatment vegetation, and that needs to be removed and replaced with good wetland plants. We now have an excellent expert at the temple in that area, Claire Seisman, who is in the business of working with aquatic plants at a nearby nursery. So right now, we have an urgent need in terms of a window of opportunity to do this maintenance. In order to preserve and make use of the existing plants in the wetland cell, we need to take them out while we do the maintenance in terms of removing the gravel and the sediments that have built in there, and we need to make that happen before the frost comes, which would kill those plants and force us to totally purchase new plants. So in order to make that happen, we've got to get our project done before frost comes at the end of October. So in summary, we basically have the first constructed wetland wastewater treatment system that was built in Maryland. The system's been proven. It's been operating for 25 years, but after time, like any system, it's going to need some maintenance. And we need to make that happen now in order to take advantage of the window of opportunity before the first frost. So anything you can do to help in terms of allowing us to get the funds we need to move forward with this important project would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your time.